Me want to become a leader is an obscenity. If people have to recognize you as a leader, there must be some insight.
There's always the fear of falling off. How does one deal with that?
This person must happen absolutely the way you want him. Now you wouldn't think of success and failure.
What are the 2-3 big things which can help ensuring that people's aspirations are met?
If we do not keep the nation culturally united, there is no other point of commonness for us to hold us together. India has become tomorrow. No, we have to make an India today. Namaskar.
One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about was, leadership, because you've provided great leadership. Now, how do you see leaders, whether it's in politics or spirituality or corporate world? What do you think defines leaders? What makes leaders happen? Is there some kind of a common trait that's common to all leaders?
In politics, in Indian politics, how somebody becomes a leader is… you're not employing that method, I know. But if you want to become a quick leader, this many people will do. 150 people, if you gather them, go and block Mysore-Bangalore road. In 3 days, you will become a leader. Yes.
Sure.
A whole lot of them have become leaders like this. You stop something. You block the road, rasta roko, rail roko, band, hartal. This is Mahatma Gandhi's technology to oust a foreign ruler. But unfortunately, we are doing it to ourselves. So, a whole lot of leaders are agitators. Agitators are pretending to be administrators, which is a terrible thing, because stopping something is one kind of technology. Making something happen is a completely different affair. People who know only how to stop something, they get to positions where they're supposed to make something happen, and the disaster we have seen. In many ways, it's dancing in the country. So those leaders, we will leave them. You're talking about corporate and other leaders. If you want to be a leader among people, not because you do something threatening to their lives and they have to recognize you. If you're a criminal don, you cause some trouble, some pain, you break somebody's arm, you'll become a leader. Really, publicly you break somebody's arm, you will become a leader in the local area. Or you break somebody's life by blocking their thing or burning their house or burning a bus. This has been one way. But otherwise, if people have to recognize you as a leader, there must be some insight about something. If you… essentially leadership means people have allowed you to sit on a perch. If you sit on a perch, you're supposed to see better than others. If you sit on a perch and you don't see any better than others, you will be ridiculed as a fool. This is the danger of leadership. If you climb up and you can't see any better than others, people will laugh at you. So the essential thing is you are able to see something that a whole lot of people are not able to see. That will naturally make you into a leader, and that's how a leader should come up. Now once there is insight, now insight will give you a certain capability, but now if you do not marry your insight with your integrity, then your leadership, you may be immensely capable, but when they see you have no integrity, the same people who put you up will pull you down, if it's possible. Otherwise, sometimes we fall by ourselves. Both happens. So, it is these two things which are most important, and also inspiration. A whole lot of people, they do their work and they go home and they relax, their family, their children, a cinema, a drink, eating, whatever, friends, society. But once you become a leader, there's no such things. I was just warning Rohini, this is it, he's getting into politics, you'll barely see him. Because if you become a leader, now people's expectation is such, you're carrying million people's lives on your shoulders. So there is no such thing as day, there is no such thing as night, there's no such thing as Sunday, Monday, nothing. It's just on and on. So unless you're sufficiently inspired, leadership can be a tedious job. Unless your insight is deep enough that what you see is so valuable for everybody around you who does not see that it has to translate into action and life, and you have the necessary integrity to translate that, and you're inspired enough to be relentlessly at it, because just becoming a leader for the sake of being a leader, because these things are being taught everywhere now, become a leader, become a leader. It's a kind of an obscenity if you ask me. Me want to become a leader is an obscenity. I do something and people recognize he's a leader, is a nice way to do things. That's how it should happen, the natural order of things. You're doing something significant enough, everybody will look up to you and say, he's a leader. But if you think, I am a leader, I want to be a leader, this is a kind of a megalo thing. It's not necessary in a society.
You talked about integrity and intellect, kind of able to see beyond. What about being emotionally and spiritually centered? I mean, is that also a requirement, do you feel?
See, first of all, we must because these words are so horribly corrupted, this needs to be cleaned up first. The word spiritual. When we utter the word spiritual, there are all kinds of weird images coming up in people's minds. What is spiritual? Because all kinds of weird things have been done in the name of spirituality. Or at least it's been perceived that way many times. When many contributions have been made to this, many people from outside the country have recognized this when they enter this nation, with all this chaos. India is a very colorful chaos. It's a certain talent to live in this country. It needs a certain expertise to live in this country, not just to be a leader or something. Just to live in this country, you need a certain kind of expertise. Others who come from outside will be bewildered, just the way things are happening within the family, within the town, within the country. So, this colorful chaos is because we are not one kind of people. I was just talking about this. We are not one kind of people. All nations are formed out of the sameness of whatever they recognize, race, religion, this, that. We are standing in total defiance of that mediocratic idea. A mediocre idea of everything should be same does not exist in this country. In the same house, in the same family, 5 people can worship 5 different gods and still live together without any problems, okay? And they can change gods whenever they feel like it. It's the only country, this only culture which has given you that choice, because you're stuck with one god everywhere else. Here it's not like that. You can choose, you don't like this one, you can go to another one. You don't like any, you can create your own. Yes, there's something called as Ishtadevata, you can create your own. That is how 33 million gods and goddesses.
Open architecture for religion.
Yes. Because the divine is seen as a tool, not as an end. So when we say spiritual, we are not talking about otherworldly stuff. We are talking about the human being, the innermost core of the human being. When you say physical, you're talking about the body. It's common knowledge, we accumulated this body by eating the food that we've eaten. It's just a piece of the planet. If we get this point now, it'll be good, otherwise one day we'll get it from the maggots when it's a little too late. This is just a piece of planet that we picked up. So what we gather can be ours, but can never ever be me, isn't it? This can be mine, this cannot be me. This most people do not realize till the moment of death. If we realize right now, then we understand body is an accumulation of food that we've eaten. Mind is an accumulation of the information and exposure that we have had. It's a heap of impressions, this is a heap of food. Between these two heaps, where are you? That's a question. If you've not even figured out experientially where you are, everything that you do is by accident. We try to organize a psychological structure so that you don't feel like an accident on a daily basis. But 3 days if you don't do anything at all, simply sit in one place, simply. No reading, no talking, no television, no looking out of the window, simply. You will see all these things will confront you. That's why everybody's busy. They have to be busy because if they simply sit, existential questions will confront them. What am I? What is the nature of my existence? So spiritual process essentially means your experience of life has transcended the limitations of your physicality, that you are able to experience something beyond your physical nature. Why is this important? See, physicality always comes with boundary. The very nature of the physical is a defined boundary. You can call this a physical body only because it has a boundary. If you pull out all the boundaries, it is no more a physical thing. So as long as you're identified with your physicality, you are a slave to boundaries. You are setting up boundaries and boundaries of various kinds. This is why biological family is so important, my community is important, otherwise, as we expand, nation becomes important at the cost of something else. Everything, every boundary is always at a cost of something else. A spiritual process means you've arrived at something experientially, not intellectually or ideologically. Experientially, you know something that is not physical in nature. That which is not physical means it's naturally a boundless process. Once you have touched that, now your identity is such that it is not limited to anything. When I say why is this important is because the nature of human mind and intellect is such, whatever you're identified with, your mind works only around that. It cannot work any other way. If you say, I'm an Indian, it works around that. If you say, I'm a man, it works around that. If you identify yourself with a religion or a caste or a creed or whatever, it is millions of identities. Every identity that you take… I'm sorry, I'm not talking about the Aadhaar.
Also one more boundary.
Whatever you're identified with, around that your mind works and it becomes a whirlpool. A whirlpool does not go anywhere. If you ever sit in front of a river and watch, the river is going, but the whirlpool does not go anywhere, it'll be in the same place. So once you're identified with something, then immediately your intellect works around that. It's a whirlpool of ideas and thoughts, but it is not an expansive process. The cosmos itself is a living intelligence. See, today our idea, unfortunately, because of our Western education, we trust what happens in our intellect far more than what happens in our body. This is a completely European way of doing things. If you look at this, what happens in a single molecule of DNA is so complex, with all your intellect you can't figure it. That's how complex it is. If you look at the body, do you remember how your great-great-great-great-grandfather looked? Don't. But his nose is sitting on your body, on your face. Your body remembers. Your body remembers what happened 1,000,000 years ago, isn't it? In terms of memory and intelligence, this body, the living cells in this body, is far bigger than what the intellect can ever do. So spiritual process means if you're not identified with your thought, with your emotion and your physicality, there is a whole new dimension of intelligence available to you. When I say a whole new dimension of intelligence, what did you have for lunch? Do you get to eat these days or no?
No. We ate some nuts and grapes in the
See,
farm.
you eat a nut, that's a wrong thing. You eat a nut, and this, whether a groundnut or whatever nut you eat, over the afternoon, it transforms itself into a human being, isn't it? There is an intelligence here which can make a simple groundnut into a human being. So when there is such an intelligence here, it is there present in you, present in me. Only thing is, it's happening unconsciously. Spiritual process means to bring this into your conscious process. Even if a drop of this intelligence entered your conscious process, people around you think you are superhuman. But this is not about being superhuman, this is understanding that being human is super. That is spiritual process.
The other point was, leadership is also about empathy, about connecting with people emotionally and sort of relating to their needs, desires, suffering, so forth. So where does the whole emotional side of it come in?
If you try to do such things, you'll die of pressure. Now, you're standing for election. If you try to do that with the whole of Bangalore city, I'm saying these are not values, these are not things that you do. See, this is something we need to understand. Whether it's your thought or your emotion or any experience that happens with you, your joy, your love, your ecstasy, your agony, whatever happens within you, happens from within you, isn't it? It never rains upon you. There may be an external stimulus, but still it always happens from within you. So, to be this way, that way is not a principle, it's not an ideology that you set for yourself. If your body becomes pleasant, we call this health. If it becomes very pleasant, we call it… if it becomes very pleasant, we call it pleasure. If your mind becomes pleasant, we call this peace. If it becomes very pleasant, we call it joy. If your emotions become pleasant, we call this love. If it becomes very pleasant, we call this compassion. If your very life energies become pleasant, we call this blissfulness. If it becomes very pleasant, we call it ecstasy. If your surroundings become pleasant, we call it success. So, if you right now make yourself into a pleasant being, you don't have to think about having empathy with people, reaching out to them, this, that. It's just natural for you because you're feeling pleasant, you exude pleasantness. You don't have to act it out. If you try to act it out, try to reach out to everybody, it'll drive you nuts.
I think that's very, very useful, very useful, I think. Probably trying too hard, so I should learn from what you said. Jatinder, the other thing was, about, fear of failure. I mean, I think, most people do the same thing and get comfortable in what they do, but when you try to do something else, which often is radically different from what you do, then there's always the fear of falling off the abyss of failure. So how do you think we should confront these kind of feelings and how does one deal with that?
See, the fear of failure is very directly related to the fear of suffering, that when you fail, you suffer. Suppose you enjoy your failure, there wouldn't be a problem, isn't it? So, because right now you can only enjoy your success, or in other words, only if the world arranges itself in a certain way around you, you can enjoy that. If it arranges itself in a different way, you will suffer that. Or in other words, your pleasantness is conditional, or your pleasantness is mortgaged to the world around you. Once you do this, see, the world will never happen 100% the way you want it. Even if you're just two people in the family, it's not happening 100% the way you want it, isn't it? Not for you, not for anybody.
For sure.
Not for you, not for anybody, for that matter. Nobody has found that one person who will be 100% the way you want them. Nobody happens your way, that's not the problem. The problem is, this person is not happening your way, that's the problem, isn't it? If this person happened your way, would you keep him pleasant or unpleasant? 100%, huh?
Be pleasant.
You're just from a political rally, you're saying wrong things.
I said pleasant.
Pleasant, highest level of pleasantness, isn't it, for yourself? If there is a choice, for every one of you, if there is a choice, highest level of pleasantness, nothing less. What you want for your neighbor may be debatable, but what you want for yourself is 100% pleasantness. So, why is this not happening? This has to be looked at. If this is assured for you, no matter where you're placed, you're still pleasant. Now, you wouldn't think of success and failure, you would do everything to the best that you can do. Some things happen, some things don't happen. If everything is happening in your life, that means probably you're living in your kitchen. You're not stepped out into the world. If you step out into the world, some things happen, some things don't happen, isn't it? The further you step out, more things will not happen. So what? At least you stepped out. You cannot accuse a man of failure. But if a man doesn't even try, that's a crime. Whatever you think is worth trying, if you do not even try because of the fear of suffering that's waiting. So first and foremost thing is, as long as fear of suffering exists, a human being will take only half steps. This is the whole problem with humanity. It's half a life, half steps and half lives, because the fear of suffering, what will happen to me? If you make yourself in such a way, that no… whatever happens, this is how I will be. If this assurance came into you, then you would take full strides in your life. Some things will happen, some things will not happen. People around me are always terrified. These days they've kind of settled. Because mega projects, we just start off. People say, Sadhguru, if this doesn't happen, what to do? If it fails? I said, if everything that I'm doing in my life falls flat on its face tomorrow morning, I will still live blissfully and die blissfully. This is assured. So, what the hell, let's do it and see. If it works, it works. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work.
So, whatever large project you take, you're completely unfazed by the possibility of it failing.
See, I have not given this privilege to anything or anybody around me that they can make me happy or unhappy or miserable or this thing. I have kept these privileges to myself.
It's very good. That's very good one. So once you take that privilege back, then, anything is possible.
See, this is not because… when I say I keep the privilege to myself, it does not mean I'm not involved. Probably, I mean, let me not compare, but I have probably in this room the maximum number of intimate relationships in the world. I'm not just with crowds, I'm involved with individual people at various levels, thousands of people. I know them personally, I'm engaged with them, I go to their homes, I eat in their homes, play with them, do things with them. So, it is not that you're avoiding life, it is just that all your experience of life, whether painful experiences or joyful experiences, any experience, pleasant or unpleasant, is generated from within. What is happening from within you at least must happen the way you want it. Now you're in Bangalore South, whether all that happens your way or not is determined by so many people, it's not yours. You can only do your best and that's it. So, when it comes to the world, we have a certain purchase on it. Nobody has absolute traction with the world, okay? We have some traction. Depending upon our capability, maybe we have more or less at different times. Depending on the situation, sometimes we have more grasp, sometimes we have less grasp. Because that is the nature of the world. The world doesn't happen your way. That's good. Because if the world happened 100% your way, where do I go? Where does everybody else go? A little bit happens my way, a little bit your way, a little bit somebody else's way, it's fine. We are all striving to see that little more happens my way, Everybody is striving to make their life happen little more, the world around you, little more your way. So if even in your home, if 51% is happening your way, that means you have the controlling stake. But with this 1%, it must happen 100% the way you want it, isn't it? This person must happen absolutely the way you want him. If this has to happen, you have to take charge of your interiority, which unfortunately, which has been the fundamental of this culture right through history. In the last few generations, we've completely abandoned it because of distortions, misuse, all kinds of things.
No, but how do you combine? See, one can reach a state of pleasantness or whatever. At the same time, if you want to achieve something, you need to feel there's something unfinished or there's something that can be better, which is an irritant in some sense. So how do you balance this being at peace with yourself with also achieving?
See, right now when you say being at peace with yourself, you are making your peace subject to something else. That's exactly what I'm saying. My peacefulness, my joyfulness is not subject to anything. This is the way I am. Because this is the way I am, I do so many things. This is how life happens. Because you're a certain kind of life, you do certain things. Because you do certain things, you get to have certain things. But right now, the world is trying to go in a reverse direction. They want that, so they do that, so they become this. This is a reverse direction. In this, you will always be suffering. It doesn't matter where you go, how far you go. You will always be suffering because that is the nature of the mind. The experience is generated from within. You make this one. See, if you want to create either a corporation or a nation or a city the way you want it, it simply means you have to manage 1 million people probably. If you can't manage this 1%, how are you going to manage this million people? Just by accident. When you rule by accident, anxiety is natural, isn't it?
That's very useful. I just want to just switch tracks. India has the largest pool of young people in the world, and everybody's aspirations have been unleashed. Everybody's wants a better life for themselves, for the children. So, how do you see that? Because if suddenly all these things are unleashed, then and they're not as sort of enlightened as you are. How do you make sure that we don't have huge disappointment or huge backlash when many people not able to accomplish or not able to get to where they want?
Definitely, India right now has the maximum number of youth on the planet. This happened in one of the conferences. One of our esteemed ministers was gloating about this in an international conference, that how we have the youngest population in the world, we have only young people. This went on for some time. Then I asked him a simple question, what happened to the old people? He said, what? We have only young people. I said, that's okay, but what happened to the old people? Because nobody gets old in this country. That's not a good thing. We are gloating, oh, Japanese are all old people, American… That's because they're living well, they live to be old. In this country, when we got… in 1947, the average life expectancy of an Indian was 28 years. Today it's around 62 or 63, it's a big leap. But still we don't have old people because not many people get old. And that's not a credit. That's a disgrace that people don't get old in this country. So, fine, we have to work with what we have. We cannot talk about something which is not there. We have youth. Youth essentially means life in the making, not yet. They are not totally lost, totally conceited, totally corrupt, totally nothing. They are a nebulous group of people and the most energetic group of people in any population. There is energy, but there is no direction like this. So if we manage to produce a competent, capable, inspired and focused youth, we will become the greatest miracle, no question about that. But if we leave them as they are, if they're unfocused, uninspired, unskilled, we are looking towards a biggest, massive human disaster on the planet. We'll be one of the biggest disasters on the planet. This is, because I'm hands-on with the rural communities, what's growing there is not very… it's scary, it's not good. Just to tell you one example, there are many situations. A few years ago, maybe 10 and 12 years ago, I don't know if it's across the country or it's only in Tamil Nadu, till 10th standard, till 9th standard, there's no such thing as fail. Everybody passes. Is it so in Karnataka also?
I guess now with RT,
They just anyway come to 9th standard. So, what is happening is, see, children go to school and I don't have to go into all these things. You know how many teachers go to school and how many don't go to school, all these things, facts are out in the public. A whole lot of… in Tamil Nadu, government schools alone have 9.6 million children, okay, in the government schools alone, leaving the private. We are very engaged with adopting the government schools and doing this stuff, so we have this hands-on information and contact and experience of what happens there. Compared to many other states, Tamil Nadu is better off. That is what people tell me. I'm not so conversant, but I've been to some of the northern states, definitely we're way better than what's happening there. This better off state, this is not a Bimaru state, this is a better off state. In this better off state, there are millions of children who are coming to this place, they become 14, 15 years of age. They're wearing denim jeans, okay? They have the attitude of the educated, but they can't count 2 plus 2 because they've just been promoted. 10th standard, they're going to get filtered because it's a board exam. Now, there are millions of youth in rural India. If they had gone with their father to the farm, they would have learned some farming. If they went to the carpentry shop with their uncle, they would have learned something. Now they have no skills, they have no education, and they have the attitude of the educated. They neither have the physique to go back to the farm, nor the attitude to go back to the farm. We are producing this kind of youth. For every solution that you come up with, you multiply the problem. See, right now, they said right to education, everybody go to school, everybody pass till 9th standard. Because if you fail them, they'll drop out. But if he drops out, he will at least learn to graze cows, he will at least learn to farm, he'll at least learn something. We could have formed another type of education where maybe instead of 10 years, maybe in 1.5 years, you could teach him some farming techniques or carpentry or electrician, something we could have done. But instead of that, we are putting everybody through academic education, and not everybody is competent. Many of them are first generation coming to school. There is no atmosphere of education when they go back home. They don't even know why they have to study. Slowly it's improving, but we are producing this kind of segments. These segments can cause enough trouble to the country that you can't recover. Because there is as we know, almost 25% of the India's land is right now occupied and ruled by armed groups, almost 20% or 25%. We need to understand this. All of us remember, just 10 people, 10 armed men, what havoc they caused in Mumbai city, okay? Literally shook the nation to its roots. There are over 20 to 25,000 heavily armed men in the country who are right now in the jungles. Just imagine, if 1,000 of them walked into Bangalore city and took it, finished this country isn't it? Why are we thinking it's not a possibility? You think security forces are equipped to stop them? No, they can come in a train and get off a train, believe me. Because they have Aadhaar cards also, I'm sure. When they have their IDs.
Sadhguru, you're taking a lot of digs at Aadhaar.
They have some kind of ID, national ID, whatever, they have a ration card probably. Maybe they have…
They have Aadhaar, they have Aadhaar.
I'm saying they're eligible to buy a ticket, pack their guns in the suitcase, get off in the Bangalore station and spread out. It doesn't take… it's very much possible. And there is no effort to handle these things. We just think just going and shooting 100 guys once in a way is going to settle the problem. No, it needs an overall approach. A society needs to feel that it's cared for, otherwise it's natural for them to pick up a stick or a gun or whatever they get into their hands. Only because of a certain type of culture, an armed revolution has not happened in this country for a long time. Otherwise, the kind of apathy that we have left people in any other nation, it would have happened very easily. It's only in one segment of the country it's happening, still other segments of the nation is not taking it up. They'll rather commit suicide than pick up a gun, unfortunately. 100,000 people have committed suicide not being able to, make their existence happen in a village. So, there's no determination, there is no absolute relentless intent to solve these problems. This needs to happen, this needs…
Sadhguru, you are raising quite a scary prospect.
I'm not trying to be… I'm very optimistic about the nation because whatever the realistic situation right now does not take into consideration what is beating in people's hearts, what people are aspiring for. So discounting that, it's a scary situation. But if people's aspirations are strong and aspirations become action, then we can reverse this very effectively. India is one country which can be changed most easily compared to any other nation because there is no strong belief system on anything. People are flexible, malleable, you can change them. It's just that somebody has to go down the line and do it. We have not built such a force yet. Either the political system or the administrative machinery, somebody has to do it. Or social movements, somebody has to do it. If you work from this end, it's an uphill task. If it comes down from that end, it would be so much faster and easier, this generation would benefit.
So, how do you what is the change in the political system and governance? If you were to say, what are the two, three big things which can help in sorting out this issue of ensuring that people's aspirations are met?
See, one thing is, this happened about 12 years ago. At that time, the NDA government was in power. I went to meet the rural development minister because we have action for rural rejuvenation going on in Tamil Nadu. So, he took me into the ministry and he said, he opened up 10, 20 different files and said, read through this. I sat there in that dusty place for 3 days reading through all these projects that they have. When I looked through these projects, these are well thought out projects, believe me. Whoever did this, they really applied their mind, they got all the things together, truly well thought out schemes. But who is there to implement it? For this to be implemented, the authority on the top has to take charge and crack the whip on everybody down the line. That's never happened. Always we're worried about the next election and the next election and we're always going on soft on everything. What is the problem? If you have 5 years, do a good job and lose your power, what is the big deal? Nobody has thought like this. They're only thinking how to stay there for another 5 years. For what? Anyway, you're doing nothing. Why are you staying there for one more 5 years? I don't know. See, someone has to… the authority is given to you to exercise it. Right now, everybody is in this mode. I was talking to, someone like you, entering into politics for a different purpose. I was talking to Jaiprakash Narayan in Hyderabad, and he said, no, I don't want power. I said, what is your problem? If you don't want power, why are you wasting my time and your time? Because you have some strange idea. See, in this country, these strange ideas have gone into people's heads. No, I don't want money, but under the table you take it. I don't want power, but anyway you'll get there. Why? Money and power are not bad things if you are right. If you are in the right place within you, both these things are empowerments. With this only you can do something. If you have an intent of doing something, you need power, you need money, otherwise how the hell are you going to do anything? Isn't it? But everybody says, I don't want power, I'm not for power. I want to hear somebody say, I want power. I want to get there into a powerful position and I'm going to do something useful. Rather than everybody acting like sannyasis.
But but do you see in terms of a specific… one is of course, okay fine, people should be more less coy about their desire for power, but what do you see, what should they do? I mean…
Coy is not the word.
whatever, less reticent or
Position with power.
Yes.
Yeah.
People confuse position with power. Position
Sure.
does nothing. Power is what you do with it.
Yeah.
When you're as powerful as what you do.
See, if you are clean within you and you have the right intent, why is it that you don't want power? I want all the power in the world.
Sure.
Only then you can do something, isn't it? If you have no intention of doing anything, you just want to project yourself as something, without power you walk on the streets, talk good things and go home and sleep.
Great. I think maybe now we'll just… any questions from the audience?
I'm intrigued by your reinforcing culture again and again. There's an Indian culture, and how do you reconcile that with saying, we're not developed? So that culture which is holding us back, it's not culture, is it? Or I mean,
No.
I wouldn't attribute that to culture. Maybe you don't, so I just wanted to clarify. If you didn't mean culture, then I may have misunderstood, but it seemed like you were saying there was something cultural holding us back.
No, I did not say culture is holding us back. What I meant was, see, if an individual person is spiritually fired up, he need not be associated with culture. He can be free of culture. But if a person is not spiritually fired within himself, culture is a very important ingredient in the making of a human psyche. Because your fundamental identity comes from that. Especially in this country, you can speak a different language, you can look different, you can eat different, but still it's a fundamental culture which holds the nation together. If you keep hacking at that, then the sovereignty of the nation will be untenable over a period of time. So, if we do not keep the nation culturally united, there is no other point of commonness for us to hold us together. Now, When I talk about culture, there is also a deeper culture. We must understand this. Before the English came to this country, it's little 250 or 300 years ago, there was not a single illiterate person in the country. Nandan feels they've not done a good enough job on us. There was not a single illiterate person. Everybody could read and write. But there were no schoolrooms. They were amazed. Where do they learn this? Because school just happened as a part of the home. Nobody went to school. The idea of going to school only came much later. Otherwise, education happened in its own way. This is why what has turned out into a horribly discriminatory process now, this whole caste system was the school. If your father is a carpenter, from the age of 5, you're learning carpentry. And you'll only marry a carpentry family. And it's only carpentry growing generation to generation. If you're a blacksmith, only that growing. This was the only school that was there. There was no school or there was no university for you to develop skills. This was the only way. When you break those things, because we did not handle our differences properly, every difference that we had, we started handling it as a discriminatory process, it became ugly. Otherwise, differences are fine. You're different, I'm different, it's perfectly fine. The problem is, if you make the difference into a discriminatory process, then it turns ugly. So the caste system turned ugly because it became discriminatory. The blacksmith or the goldsmith thinks the blacksmith is inferior to him, okay? These kind of discriminatory processes began and then people want to demolish it. When you demolish it, if you do anything to a nation or to a demographics of this size, you must understand the consequence of demolishing something. If you demolish something, you must have an alternative which is better than that. When you're not able to replace a better system with the existing, maybe not so good system, then you end up with a chaotic atmosphere. So when I say culture, the culture goes back. We have the most ancient culture which has remained. To some extent, it has gone through various types of metamorphosis but survived. Wherever imperialist forces went, the local culture never survived, completely uprooted. This is the only place where they got integrated rather than we getting integrated with theirs. This has happened only in this country because of the complexity of thought, complexity of vision, complexity of inner perception, which they could not counter with their simplistic philosophies and belief systems. So this profoundness of intellect has been there for generations and generations, for hundreds and thousands of generations. So this is not lost upon you and me. See, whatever said and done, today there is substantial scientific data to prove this. Suppose, let us say for the last 5 generations in your family, all of them were engineers. Your ability to be engineer, unless you resist, you have allergy to do it because your father was forcing you to be an engineer, you develop allergy, that's a different thing. Otherwise, just naturally you have a better capability to be an engineer than anybody else. This is something clearly scientifically established now. So this way, in terms of intellect, we have used our intellect in such complex ways in this country without any purpose. That is the beauty of it. We are not always thinking what is the utility of a human being. A human being need not be useful. If he fully blossoms into a full-fledged human being, it's good enough. If a mango tree blossoms into a full-fledged mango tree, it's good enough, isn't it? Whether you take the fruit to the market or a squirrel eats or a bird eats, that's not the point. That the mango tree has grown to its full capacity, that's all. Similarly, a human being has grown to his full capacity. That's all that matters. You don't have to worry about how to make him useful, how to yoke him to your cart. No. Anyway, he will be useful. If he is of a certain capability, wherever he is, Nandan could have worked in his little village and been useful for probably 200 people in that village. Or he could have worked in a little town and done that. But the same capability, now maybe is internationally present, that doesn't matter. That is only because of the situations which facilitate that. But the same human being could exist in a little village and still be useful for this small community. So, we don't have to think always when it comes to a human being, it's not a commodity, it is a life. You don't have to think in terms of the usefulness of this person. That is the basis of this culture. The only thing is allowing a human being to seek and grow. Seeking is the essential nature. Quest, eternal quest, seeking for an eternal truth is the nature of this culture. As long as you keep this, your intellect will not come to a halt, your intelligence will not hit a roadblock or a wall. It is constantly on, looking for something. And is this useful or not useful? It's not for us to judge it. Is it useful for a human being to live joyfully or not? Somebody may think it's not useful, but that's the only purpose, isn't it? So, producing full-fledged human beings has been the nature, and that residue or that hangover is still there in all of us. Before it goes away, we have to capitalize on it. If we don't… See, right now this is one thing that's happening in the nation. Probably most of you never noticed this. If you walk into any village, my association with rural India goes back all the way to my youth. 25–30 years ago, if you walked into an Indian village, there was no drinking water, there was no road, there was no nothing, all cattle and this and that, whole confusion, a lot of people were in subsistence farming. Today if you walk into a village, but people were robust at that time. A villager means, always in our day-to-day language usage, a villager means a robust man. Today you walk into the village, every village has 5 bore wells and 3 of them are fake. Believe me. There are telephones, everybody's got cell phones, they got kiosks, internet kiosks, all kinds of things. But you look at the human being, 60% of the male population in India, their skeletal system has not grown to full size. The condition of the female population is worse. So if your body is not growing to full size, even your brain is not growing to full size, isn't it? You are producing a whole substandard humanity and you're talking about being a superpower. This is just a pipe dream. If you want to produce a great nation, you just produce great people, great nation will happen. You don't have to build a great nation, you just produce great people and great nation will happen. We are not even producing full-fledged physical human beings. 60%, you walk into any village, close to Bangalore, just here, just go across the… just today morning I was there, across the airport into the villages there, you will see people are all puny like this, because they've never eaten properly in their whole life. So when you produce substandard humanity, where do you go? So the most important thing in a nation is the people, not something else and something else. All the other things should just serve the human being, not the other way around. The society is there, an individual human being, this is a concept that's going everywhere unfortunately, an individual human being need not serve the society. We built a society to serve the well-being of an individual human being. We built a nation to serve the well-being of an individual human being. The individual human being is important. If the individual human being is not important, what are you going to do with an idea of a nation? Because nation is just an idea. If it sinks into all our minds, we act like that. If it doesn't, we'll act differently, isn't it?
You were talking about youth earlier, and I find, and I deal with a lot of young people, and I find there's so much cynicism. How do you get them to be optimistic and feel that change can happen?
You must ask them to stop watching the news channel and maybe avoid the front page of the newspaper and read the inner pages and walk around in the town, meet people. There are a whole lot of people doing everyday wonderful things in the town. If 10 people are committing some crime, there are 10,000 people who are going about their life doing something useful to themselves and to everybody around them. Is this not true? Is this not true in every city? So, instead of going by what is happening in the news channel or in the newspaper, just open your eyes, look at the people around you. There are not too many criminal people or demons around you, there are wonderful people around you. Just open your eyes and see, just feel and see. Yes, it is true. Then your cynicism will go. At the same time, at the national level, you can't go on telling them tomorrow is going to be better. We got to do something to prove that tomorrow is better. It's very important. Otherwise, you can't go on telling stories to the youth, tomorrow is going to be better, don't worry. In Karnataka, there is a superstition that every day in the evening in the villages, some evil forces will try to enter your house and they can see only red color. So in red paint it is written Nale Ba. So every day it comes and the evil forces cannot enter your house because your house is ready, for tomorrow. So India has become tomorrow. No, we have to make an India today, it's very important.
Great, Sadhguru. Thank you so much. It's always a joyful experience to work with you, and I still remember the wonderful time we used to have in Davos together. Thank you all for participating so patiently.
All the best for you.